They asked me to start my remarks by talking about my mentors. And there's so many of you actually sitting in this audience this afternoon who have been mentors to me over the course of my career. Some of you who I have mentored will have no idea how much I have learned from you as well. However, if I had to identify one person who's been a driving force for me, it would be Dr. Marilyn Gaston. Marilyn Gaston is a retired Assistant Surgeon General and Director of the Bureau of Primary Health Care. She was a Rear Admiral in the U.S. Public Health Service, and she's now co-director of the Gaston and Porter Health Improvement Center. Prior to her work at the Bureau of Primary Health Care, Marilyn was an NIH researcher who did research in sickle cell anemia that changed the treatment of that disease and led to decreased morbidity and mortality in affected children. And I'm happy to say that she continues to mentor me to this day, for which I'm very grateful. That's not also to suggest that many of you don't continue to mentor me to this day as well, and hopefully through the context of my remarks, we will all be reminded of the importance of doing various types of mentoring for each other as we go through this journey that Betsy described in her remarks. So moving on. As family medicine educators, we strive to train our students and residents to become highly competent physicians who have a strong foundation in clinical medicine. In addition to being clinically competent, family physicians need to have a high tolerance for ambiguity and uncertainty. Family physicians must be able to help the patients and families they care for deal with loss and mourning. They must be skilled in dealing with conflict and competing interests between family members. The nature of family medicine training lends itself to teaching family doctors to work as part of interprofessional teams and to understand and respect the roles and competencies of other members of the healthcare team. During my 18 months as president of UMDNJ, I was called upon to demonstrate my skills as a family physician in every domain. As I will describe, the process of integrating UMDNJ into Rodgers, the State University of New Jersey, was filled with uncertainty, ambiguity, divergent interests, loss, grieving, and hope for the future. This was the theme of my University Day address to the wider university community in September 2012. With a relatively short lifespan as universities go, UMDNJ had a somewhat convoluted birth process and development. This afternoon, I will share with you the story of the birth, life history, and death of a university. The state of New Jersey had no facilities for medical and dental education until 1954, when the Seton Hall College of Medicine and Dentistry was established under the auspices of the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Newark. The first class of 80 medical students and 36 dental students was admitted to its programs located in Jersey City in September of 1956. The college expanded its program in 1961 when the Graduate School of Biomedical Sciences was chartered by the State Board of Education. The first candidates for the MS and PhD degrees entered in 1962. Again, for many of us, a contemporary history, shall we say. Early in 1961, it became apparent that the Archdiocese of Newark couldn't support the college's growing financial deficit, and this was a threat to the institution's very survival. So in April 1964, Governor Richard Hughes, with leaders of the Senate and General Assembly in New Jersey, appointed a fact-finding committee to determine the feasibility of the state taking over the operation of the Seton Hall College of Medicine and Dentistry. This was the first of many fact-finding committees in New Jersey looking at health professions education. On July 28, 1964, the committee recommended that the state purchase the assets of SHCMD for $4 million, and continue its operation under state control. The action was consummated on May 3rd, 1965, and the institution's name was officially changed to the New Jersey College of Medicine and Dentistry. We're so original with names in New Jersey. Around that same time, Rutgers University was also planning its own medical school, which was officially founded in 1962. Rutgers Medical School started as a 2-year basic science medical school and enrolled its first class of 16 students in September 1966. Its first 4-year class graduated in 1974. It's important to reiterate here that Rutgers Medical School didn't enroll its first class until 1966, so it only existed with students for 4 years before being moved from the control of Rutgers and moving under the auspices of the College of Medicine and Dentistry of New Jersey. However, the ill will that resulted from the change in university affiliation remained until the dissolution of UMD&J in 2013. In essence, there was a 43-year grudge that drove the resultant restructuring of health professions higher education in New Jersey. Rutgers really wanted its medical school back. In 1975, the School of Osteopathic Medicine was established in Stratford, New Jersey, which is about 10 miles from Camden, and represented the only UMD&J school that was based in South Jersey. In 1976, the School of Health-Related Professions was formed as part of the College of Medicine and Dentistry of New Jersey. This school trains physician assistants, physical therapists, psych rehab counselors, clinical lab scientists, dental hygienists, radiology technicians, nutritionists, and dietitians, and that's actually only a partial list of all of the health-related professions that they train in the school. In 1981, the name of the college was changed to the University of Medicine and Dentistry of New Jersey, a name that barely anyone could understand or get right. We had state legislators who couldn't get the name right. UMD&J, what a mouthful. Who thought of that? And I'm sure most of you out there, until this moment, had no idea what UMD&J stood for. The School of Nursing was founded in 1992, and in 1998, the School of Public Health was founded. Rutgers Medical School's name was changed to Robert Wood Johnson Medical School in 1986. It was named after General Robert Wood Johnson, who was one of the brothers who founded the Johnson & Johnson Corporation and who gave the original endowment that created the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. It's important to note here that the school didn't get a dime for changing its name to Robert Wood Johnson. However, it was pretty clear that Rutgers didn't want a medical school running around with its name when that medical school had nothing to do with Rutgers. So, caught between a rock and a hard place, they went with Robert Wood Johnson. And of course, for my first couple of years working at the medical school, everybody thought I worked for the foundation and tried to hit me up for money. Didn't work. So these are the 8 schools of UMD&J. UMD&J had 3 medical schools, 2 allopathic medical schools, an osteopathic medical school, nursing, dentistry, you named it. We were a comprehensive health sciences university. The clinical units of UMD&J included University Hospital, which was a large tertiary quaternary care hospital that serves as a safety net provider for the larger Newark community, which I will put as an asterisk by definition means it was always broke. University Behavioral Health Care is a network of outpatient and inpatient mental health facilities located throughout the state. Broadway House is one of few, if not the only, skilled nursing facility in the country that works solely with people affected by HIV/AIDS. The Cancer Institute of New Jersey, an NCI-designated cancer institute affiliated with Robert Wood Johnson Medical School. We had, obviously, the medical school faculty practices, and the Eric B. Chandler Health Center, which is a federally qualified health center that's owned and operated with a community board in collaboration with Robert Wood Johnson Medical School, and happens to be the place that I continue to do my patient care. So in 2013, this is what UMD&J looked like. As you might imagine, it's a pretty daunting task to oversee a $1.4 billion budget. Because when you sit here in theory and you think about $1.4 billion, it sounds like it's a lot of money. The problem is it's really hard to manage this budget when that's an inadequate amount of money to do all of the things we needed to do at the university. It was also a very daunting responsibility to recognize all of the students and employees who were reliant on us trying to get this all right. As I noted earlier, there's been a long history of advisory committees formed to make recommendations about the structure of higher education in New Jersey. The Badgelos report recommended creating 3 campuses of a newly formed, expanded state university of New Jersey. The central campus would be located in New Brunswick. The state university would include Rutgers, UMD&J, and the New Jersey Institute of Technology. And the end result, of course, would be that Rutgers and Robert Wood Johnson Medical School would again be reunited on that central campus. It's important that I digress here for a moment to remind some of you that between 2006 and 2008, UMD&J had a deferred prosecution agreement and was under the oversight of a federal monitor. It is the first and only time that an institution of higher education in the United States has ever been under a federal monitor. And I will tell all of you that if you were ever offered such an opportunity, turn it down immediately. Get yourself a good lawyer and turn it down. However, we didn't. The U.S. attorney at the time, Chris Christie, name sound familiar, took the unusual step of threatening to close a state institution because of what amounted to less than $10 million in double billing in Medicare and Medicaid at University Hospital. The period of the DPA and monitorship was filled with almost daily headlines of wrongdoing at UMD&J, because when you let a federal monitor into your institution, they get to snoop around and look at everything. And at everything they did look and find. So the U.S. attorney would regularly refer to the university as a patronage pit that was overly bureaucratic and in need of major reform, and it was just sort of negative comment after negative comment after negative comment in all these newspaper reports. It's very highly charged, very negative narrative about the university, surprise, surprise, continued when that very same U.S. attorney was elected governor of New Jersey in 2009. So in 2009, one of the last acts of the outgoing governor, John Corzine, was to create Cooper Medical School, which was to fulfill a long-standing promise to the residents of South Jersey to have a allopathic medical school. Did I mention, by the way, that the university didn't quite have enough money, and so where was this money for a new medical school coming from? But I won't go there. So in 2010, there was a higher education task force that recommended giving Robert Wood Johnson Medical School and the School of Public Health to Rutgers and reforming UMD&J. In September of 2011, the UMD&J Advisory Committee report, you're going to be shocked to know, recommended giving Robert Wood Johnson Medical School and the School of Public Health to Rutgers and reforming UMD&J. The interim report of the advisory committee was issued in September 2011, and in October 2011, the leadership of Rutgers and UMD&J, including me, were summoned to the governor's office to be directed to begin the process, of moving Robert Wood Johnson Medical School and the School of Public Health to Rutgers. And so by the end of October, that process was in full swing, and it looked like Rodgers was finally going to get its medical school back. However, as the process of transferring the two schools to Rodgers moved forward, it became evident that because of the approximately $670 million of bonded debt that existed at UMD&J, the financial picture for the remaining university was pretty unsustainable. So a lot of behind-the-scenes negotiating and compromise resulted in the decision to close UMD&J and transfer its assets as outlined in the New Jersey Medical and Health Sciences Education Restructuring Act that was signed into law in August of 2012. So on June 30th, 2013, UMD&J disappeared. And on July 1st, 2013, Rodgers Biomedical and Health Sciences came into existence at the stroke of midnight. The 7 schools of UMD&J you see here, and now with their new logos, became part of Rodgers Biomedical and Health Sciences, as well as 3 components from Rodgers, their School of Nursing, the School of Pharmacy, and the Institute for Healthcare Policy and Aging Research. The transfer of the School of Osteopathic Medicine to Rowan University occurred also on July 1st, and that gave Rowan University 2 medical schools as well, the Cooper Allopathic School as well as the Osteopathic School. So most of you are probably wondering how I ended up, of all people, becoming the president of UMD&J. Let me be clear, becoming a university president was actually not on my list of life goals. It just wasn't. What I will say, though, is that for the brief time that I had the position, I found the job to be incredibly humbling and actually a quite fulfilling experience. My journey to becoming the 5th and final started when I joined the leadership team at UMD&J Robert Wood Johnson Medical School as Associate Dean for Community Health. Thank you, David Swee. He told me about the job. In 1997, that's when I moved to New Jersey. That job actually was terrific because it allowed me to put into practice many of the things that I've been teaching residents for years about what it meant to work in communities. You may wonder then, why would you leave that wonderful job? Well, in September of 2005, the then president of the university, John Patillo, invited me to become university chief of staff. And the university had just undergone a new strategic planning process, and my job as university chief of staff was going to be to oversee the implementation of that new strategic plan. My not-so-secret goal was to try to insert notions of primary care and community into that strategic plan in every possible place I could. However, my plans got changed significantly when in December 2005 it became evident that we were going down a different path because of all of the issues that led to the deferred prosecution agreement and the federal monitorship. So then my role as chief of staff became the liaison to the federal monitor. And I got to spend enormous amounts of time collecting innumerable documents for the monitor to look at and summoning various people to be interviewed by the monitor. Believe me, people were so thrilled to see me coming. So we had the deferred prosecution agreement from January 2006 to December 2008. When John Patillo was forced to resign, effective February 28, 2006, Bruce Vladeck came in as the interim president and sort of asked me what I wanted to do, and what I was clear about is I don't want to be this chief of staff thing that has to keep working with the federal monitor anymore because this is not fun. And so I was named Executive Vice President for Academic and Clinical Affairs in April of 2006. In that role, the deans of all 8 of the schools and the presidents and CEOs of University Hospital, Broadway House, and UBHC became my direct reports. And our primary job was actually to keep the university going while many were distracted by all of the activities of that federal monitor. Our goal was to keep our eye on the ball and to remember that despite all of the headlines and all of the craziness, there were 7,000 students and hundreds of thousands of patients who were reliant on us keeping this university intact and working. In July 2007, William Owen was recruited from Tennessee to become the president of UMD&J, and I remained executive vice president. Dr. Owen resigned in December of 2011, and I was named interim president effective January 1st, 2012. In June 2013, at the last meeting of the UMD&J Board of Trustees, I was formally named president of the university, retroactive to January 2012, and the interim was removed from my title. I thought it was pretty nice. Short-lived, but nice. As I noted earlier, at the time that I was named interim president, we were preparing to transfer Robert Wood Johnson Medical School and the School of Public Health to Rodgers, and the rest of the university was going to remain intact. Here's the interprofessional group that make up the deans of UMD&J's 8 schools. I highlighted the women in red just so that we can see we had some gender diversity there. By the time I became president in 2012, the UMD&J deans had been reporting to me for over 5 years. We had developed a very good working relationship, and there was a strong team spirit. As EVP, I met with the deans weekly, and with each dean individually once a month. I often started our deans meetings asking them to present a "why are we here" story. During those times, we'd briefly discuss the accomplishments of one or more of our faculty, we'd talk about a successful student endeavor, or we'd read a letter from a grateful patient. As you might imagine, there were often very difficult issues to discuss and very hard decisions to be made, and I wanted to make sure that frequently we were reminded that what we were doing mattered. When I was named president, my peers from the administrative leadership team became my direct reports, and after making some strategic changes, a few, we too developed into a highly functioning, close-knit team. As you can see, we had quite a few lawyers on our leadership team as well. Always keeps things interesting. If you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. Well, from January to June 2012, we absolutely believed we knew where we were going. We were transferring these 2 schools. We were in the midst of a crisis, but we were in the midst of a crisis in the Chinese sense of the word. There was great danger if we got this wrong, but there was also an opportunity to make some very positive changes within the university itself. One of my top priorities was to improve morale within the university and to help people again feel a sense of pride in their work. I rejected the notion that the university was inherently flawed, and rather appropriately reframed our problems as the wrongdoings of a relatively small number of people, which is typically the case. One of the leading business thinkers that I admire is Peter Drucker. And I particularly believe in his saying that trees die from the top. Now, some of you are probably arborists out there, and you're going to tell me that trees die at every level, and some of them can die from the bottom, and some from the middle, and all this kind of stuff. But for the purposes of this afternoon, trees die from the top. Just go with it, okay? Just go with it. What's going on at the top of an organization is almost always transmitted throughout the rest of the organization. It is difficult to create a positive, nurturing environment if there's backbiting, inappropriate competition, or incompetence at the top. It is also clear to me that far too many academic health centers have incompetent leadership. I should note that if there's enlightened leadership at the top, it can be undermined by incompetent or mean-spirited leadership at lower levels within the organization if those leaders are tolerated. For this reason, I put a lot of importance on good leadership with my team. We discussed the need to be on the same page in messaging to the larger community. I strongly encouraged heated debate during our leadership team meetings, but insisted that once the meetings were over and we had made a decision, that everybody stick to that decision. As noted, a major challenge presented to us as leaders was poor morale. And so as team members, one of our major goals was to remind people at every level within the university, and I mean every level within that university, about the importance of their work and contribution to our missions. I'm also a fan of Jim Collins' work. And so I gave the administrative leaders and the deans sections of Great by Choice to read in order to help frame our work moving forward. I wanted to be clear that we were both losing 2 schools and working to rebuild an even better remaining university. Our Level 5 ambition was to create a great New Jersey health sciences university, because we were also going to change the name. During my first month as president, I started trainings for the leadership team in the principles of Lean Six Sigma. Like a lot of academic institutions, we were not bureaucratically nimble or efficient, and the quality of some of our work was not as I or they wanted it to be. I also wanted to reinforce the notion that we were building something while losing some other things. However, as I noted earlier, toward the end of June 2012, it became apparent that the original plan to just move the 2 schools and leave the rest intact was not going to work. So we then started the 20-mile march, as described by Collins and Hansen, to move 7 schools to Rodgers, to create an independent instrumentality of the state of New Jersey out of University Hospital, and to move the School of Osteopathic Medicine to Rowan University. And we were supposed to do this in 1 year. Who in their right mind thought we could do this in a year? Well, the governor did, so we did. The process that we went through during that period of time really required me to more carefully examine my own leadership philosophy, because I recognized that the importance of doing this enormous task was a task that was going to require all hands on deck, a sense of ownership, and a sense of people's determination to get it done. Again, this was another period of time in the university's history when we also, though, had to make sure that our obligation to our patients, to our students, to our communities would remain unscathed as we engaged in the integration process. So I was busy trying to build fires within. I also believe that a great leader inspires people to have confidence in themselves. And that was very important to me in working with our team. And I find verse 17 of the Tao to be particularly important in my own work style. With the greatest leader above them, people barely know one exists. Next comes one whom they love and praise. Next comes one who they fear. Next comes one whom they despise and defy. When a leader trusts no one trusts him. The great leader speaks little. He never speaks carelessly. He works without self-interest and leaves no trace. When all is finished, the people say, "We did it ourselves." One of my goals was to have people take enough ownership of this process so that on July 1st, they would feel like they did it themselves. However, I also learned an important lesson during my many years as a leader in academic medicine. I learned the incredibly destructive impact of petty, mean, overly competitive, undermining, disruptive people with low levels of emotional intelligence in your organization. Right? They suck. I came to recognize the enormous importance of building a civilized workplace that fosters mutual respect and teamwork. This is a picture of the book's cover in case any of you decide you want to buy it to help you get through some of the trials and tribulations at your own institutions. I'm hoping, of course, that all your institutions are perfect, but I do live in the real world. My mentor, Marilyn Gaston, told me repeatedly that when you are faced with making a difficult decision, as the leader of an organization, keep in mind the people that you are trying to serve. And then you make the decision that most benefits those people. And 9 times out of 10, if you do that, you will make the right decision. As the president of UMDNJ, my mantra was, it's all about the patients. Period. Now, when I originally started saying this, a lot of the educators were like, well, no, it's about the students. And I was like, well, no, it's about the patients. Because it is our obligation to do the very best job that we can in educating health profession students to be as competent as they can possibly be, because we want them delivering the highest quality services to the patients they serve. Now, I will tell you, thank God I wasn't president of a comprehensive university, because it's hard for me to make that argument about English majors. But when you're in a health sciences university, everything we do is about the patients. Our researchers do research that's aimed at curing disease and eliminating human suffering. Our patient care should strive to be the most patient-centered, comprehensive, high-quality care that we can possibly deliver. And our work in communities must be about improving the health outcomes of those who live in the communities, and not just feeling good because we're sitting around at the church luncheon. It's all about the patients. And the interesting thing is, the deans got it pretty quickly. It took a while to convince the administrative team, because what gets interesting is when you're an administrator in a university, and particularly in the healthcare side, you spend a whole lot of time worried about the wrongdoings. You spend a whole lot of time worried about compliance. You spend a whole lot of time worried about the fact that there's not enough money. And sometimes you forget the big picture of what it's all about, right? And so it's about, well, this is my domain, and I'm in legal, and it's all about making sure we stay out of legal trouble. But to what end? But when people came around, they came around big time. And in the end, I believe we all understood that it is indeed all about the patients. Today, I fear that the increased corporatization of healthcare has made us forget about our role as healers. As educators, we must talk about our role as healers. we must talk about what a privilege it is to be a healer. When we do our jobs well, we are privileged to lay on hands, to reach people's minds, and to touch their hearts. Our work can't just be about improving the bottom line. If we are truly successful in our work, if we think about the notion that it's all about the patients, we also recognize the need to promote health within ourselves. We must strive for a state of complete physical, emotional, and social well-being. As effective teachers and healers, we must strive to promote health in our families, in our students and colleagues, in our institutions, and of course, in the patients and families we serve. Each of you here today is a leader or has the potential to be a leader. We need to understand the role we can play in creating a healthier working, learning, and healing environment. Let us commit ourselves to leading in ways that never lets us forget that it's all about the patients and the unspoken covenant we have with them. Thank you.